two armed guards from Warner Brothers stopped me just as I got to my car. They were gold, by the way. They didn't just look gold, they were gold. And so I was being watched. They ended up like all things in Guillermo del Toro's man cave. I'm not a collector. I like to, just keep the memory of things. But in Quest for Fire, which was my first film, we all were cavemen. We all looked pretty much like Caveman 101, But for me, since my character had this kind of quirky, really weird personality, the makeup guy who kind of like was tickled by my approach to the whole thing, put these two sticks in my hair that almost made me look like Seven Samurai, like Toshiro Mifune in Seven Samurai. It was very kind of Japanese, even though it was 80,000 years ago. I kept those, and I think that's about it.
If anyone has the Criterion version of Kronos, I believe it is, there's an extra on there where Del Toro gives a tour of his man cave, and it's amazing. It's like this fantastic museum. You may want to check that out. Next, please.
Hey. First of all, Hellboy is definitely one of my favorite characters you've done, period. Hellboy. Sorry, I was thinking a little louder here. I'm curious if you've delved into the Hellboy comics or graphic novels heavily before or after the character, and if you have a favorite arc of what that character's done, and if you pace yourself and keep yourself away from that type of character to create your own version of Hellboy.
Well, it was very important at first, because Guillermo clearly was doing an homage to Mike Mignola and the work of Mike Mignola. He wasn't trying to improve upon it. He wasn't trying to use it as a jumping off point. He was really in love with the artist Mike Mignola in the world of Hellboy. And he wanted to do it the best he could at transferring it as it was onto the screen. So it became imperative for all of us that were involved to delve into the comic book and really get the essence of what Mignola was creating in the world of Hellboy. And Hellboy only ever spoke in one-word sentences in the comic book. So even when, Guillermo, because it was a movie, had to put dialogue in my mouth to say it, I always kind of thought of it as if it was a one-word sentence. In order to just maintain the purity of that guy's economy of thought and movement.
All right.
First off, I'm a huge fan of Hellboy. Like you said, your monsters and heart of gold are like that kind of approach to characters. But I have a question about Alien Resurrection. I'm curious, did Joss Whedon tell you when you threw the knife into the paraplegic's leg, did he tell you just be an asshole, throw a knife in the guy's leg? Or did he say act like an ape, do the whole thing, carry it out? Or was that just you, just doing your thing?
At the risk of sounding modest, all it said in the script was, Genre throws a knife into the leg of Dominic Pignon. I can't remember his character's name. And since it was the introduction of my character, I thought it should be representational of what a sick fuck this was. And I said, what better way to do that than to do an homage to my own work in Quest for Fire? So that's the answer.
Thanks.
Your live action roles are all awesome, stupendous, but what about some of your voice acting work? Any roles that you really love to do? like Stabbington Brothers, Tango, Justice, Remember Samurai Slave, the Teen Titans.
I love working on Tango. Because the guys I was working with were really bright and really appreciative. You know, if you give them something they liked, they acted like 9-year-olds. Oh God, that's so good. And that's the kind of environment I like to work in, you know, where they know when they get it. They know when they get something that is good or better than what they were looking for. That's my favorite way to work. That's my favorite thing about voice acting is because it doesn't take very long. It shouldn't take very long. You know, you just constantly go right for the performance and, you know, you're in your car an hour and a half later. The character I'm doing on Archer.
Archer fans, give it up.
We have time for a story?
Oh yeah, if it has to do with Archer, we'll stay here till they pick us up.
So, FX every year has this big party for all the critics in America. They invite everybody in. They take over a hotel, and it's huge. There's jugglers and tightrope walkers and food. You know, 8 million kinds of food, booze everywhere, and it goes all night long. So about 1:30 in the morning, there's one table of people left at this party, the real hardcore drinkers, and I'm at this table. And there's this guy at this table who I never met before. We're having a chit chat, and I said, "Who are you anyway?" He goes, "My name's Adam Reed, and you know, I have a new show on FX this year. It's an animated show." I said, "Animated, right? Is it?" He goes, "Yes." I go, "Do you realize that I'm the premier voice actor in North America?" I said, "That's an exaggeration. The Western Hemisphere." He said, "Is that right?" I said, "Ask anybody." And so 2 weeks later, my voiceover agent gets a call and says, "Do you know a guy named Adam Reed?" And I go, "Who is it?" I was really fucking drunk. He's got this new show called Archer, and he's written you a role. I said, "Oh, really? What's the role?" He says, "It's a gay Cuban spy." So Adam Reed was going, "Foremost, eh? Let's see what you got, white boy." And a gay Cuban spy was born. And I get in the booth, and you know, he knows I'm going to struggle to give him a gay Cuban spy because it's really a stretch. And he's so appreciative that he's written Ramon back into season 2, and so I love working for him too. But I do love voice work in general.
Thanks.
I guess at that time you turned to the wrong spirits. I'm a huge Magnificent Seven fan, but you stole my heart when you got back into Hellboy for that little guy. That was just the sweetest thing to do. With all your makeup roles that you've done, what do you do for your skin so that it doesn't look horrible?
Number 2, sandpaper. Really exfoliates.
Hi. So you mentioned that you really like working with Guillermo, which I'm all in favor of, as a side.
I didn't say I liked working with him. Just because we did 5 movies together, and I owe him my life. I didn't say I liked it. But yeah, okay, let's assume for the conversation that I like it.
I was just wondering, you've had quite a long career, if there was anybody, like director or actor-wise, that you haven't had a chance to work with that you really like too.
Oh my God. There are tons of directors I'd like to work with. I'd like to be in anything that's called Lee Daniels. Lee Daniels Hellboy. No, that's not true. But no, I'd love to work with the Coen brothers. I'd love to work with Paul Thomas Anderson. Talking about working with a guy named Mark Forrester, who's a phenomenal filmmaker. The guy who made my favorite movie of last year was called Beast of the Southern Wild. I'd love to work with that guy. That guy is just his own drum. And I just worked with a young film